As a nonprofit organization, we know we need to build trust, but we don't always know how to go about doing that. And losing trust with donors can happen immediately, while building trust takes time. So as we're gearing up for year-end giving campaigns, it's important to really think about how we're building trust with our donors over time. And some of that includes the technology that we choose to use, the third-party platforms that we collect money and funds on, and all of the ways that we communicate our impact with our donors. So today I have Chase Harmer on the podcast talking about ways to think about building trust with organizations, sharing our impact, and showing that financial transparency. Chase Harmer spent 25 plus years as a payment entrepreneur. He is a pioneer in virtual credit card technology with 7 patents since 2013. Founder of ProfitPay, acquired by PayCertify in 2021 with a valuation over $500 million, Chase knows how to build enterprise value and process for scale. Chase uses his experience as a lecturer and mentor at the Founders Institute. Now, as the founder of Wishes Inc., he and his team have built proprietary technology to revolutionize fundraising. Wishes delivers the resources and financial support needed quicker than any other platform in the market. We have a great conversation about building trust, how to evaluate the tools that you're using, and how we can use them to build trust in real time, communicate, raise more money, get in front of new donors that we can nurture over time. And as we gear up for Giving Tuesday and year-end campaigns, it's the perfect time to be having this conversation. Wishes is a brand new platform, and you're going to love some of the features that it includes. But this isn't just about Wishes. This is about general fundraising and general trust building with your donors. So I hope that you'll give it a listen and enjoy. But before we get into it, this episode is brought to you by our quiz, Should You DIY Your Website? We know we need to have a website that is relevant and that is current and up to date so that we can continue to build trust through our website, so that we can communicate the things that we're doing and our impact all the time, not just when we're in a fundraising campaign. So if your website isn't quite what it needs to be and you're thinking about redoing it maybe in 2024, budgeting for it in some way, shape, or form, or figuring out how you can update and refine it, then take our quiz, our free quiz at thefirstclick.net/quiz. You'll learn if you're ready to do it yourself, or if you might need to bring someone along to help you with parts of it or all of it. It's a great quiz that takes into consideration your skills and expertise, your time, your budget, all the things to give you the right tools to get your website up and running. So again, thefirstclick.net/quiz. I hope you'll check it out, and I can't wait to see what your results are. Let's get into the episode. You're listening to the Digital Marketing Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, Sammy Bedell-Mulhern. Each month, we dive deep into a digital marketing or fundraising strategy that you can implement in your organization. Each week, you'll hear from guest experts, nonprofits, and myself on best practices, tips, and resources to help you raise more money online and reach your organizational goals. Hey, everybody, please join me in welcoming Chase Harmer to the podcast. Chase, thanks for being here today.
Yeah, no, awesome. I'm so thankful to be here, and I'm excited to speak with you.
Yeah, well, we're talking about trust today, which I think is a huge factor in fundraising. If we don't have trust with our audience, they're not going to give us their dollars. But before we kind of jump into some of these, ways we can build trust, why do you think it's so much harder for nonprofit organizations to develop that trust? Like, why is that distrust there in general?
Well, I think that there's in the past, there's been charities that raised money for specific causes, and then they, come to find out later that they didn't utilize those funds on the causes they were raising money for. So I think there's a lot of that. There's a lot of these scams on platforms like GoFundMe, and I think it's just we get over time we just get kind of numb to this stuff, and then we really want to know what's going on with those funds. And so I think that's part of the dilemma that a lot of nonprofits face today.
Yeah, and it's so much harder for a nonprofit to do it more than a product-based or for-profit organization. We have to work a little bit harder, and we're gearing up for our year-end campaigns. So as we're kind of ramping up to get those out and to be talking to our donors to try to get repeat donations and try to get new donors in, what are some ways that we might want to think about building trust a little bit more organically with our audience?
Yeah, well, I think building trust all comes from impact, right? I think 76. There was a survey out that Candid did that showed like 76% of all nonprofits know that like showing the impact is essential to them raising dollars, but only 26% of them actually have a way to do that. So I think most nonprofits struggle with showing the impact, and being able to show that impact will help them raise money. But it's hard, right? Because when you get dollars in, you might disperse those to different things, and then you're not sure exactly what happens to that money in real time sometimes. And so I think that's part of the issue, is not being able to do that in real time, and not having the tools. And most nonprofits, you guys were raising money, but you don't have necessarily the big staff to help get all these things going. And so having tools, I think, to allow you to show impact will allow nonprofits to raise more dollars for specific things that they need. And I think impact in showing your donors how you're utilizing those funds is essential to raising money today.
Yeah. Well, and I want to talk about this impact piece for a second, because I think this has been a conversation that's come up a couple times on the podcast, is, we tend to want to show big numbers because it makes us look like we're doing more, right? Like there's 1 million kids that go hungry every day, like join us in helping support food insecurity, in our community. But do you think it's easier to show impact and build trust if instead you say like, hey, your $20 donation feeds 3 people in this community? Like, how do we kind of play with those numbers in a way where we can show big impact without making it seem like it's this monstrous project that we can't wrap our heads around?
Right. And I think almost all nonprofits do that. So again, like, us as donors, we become numb to, hey, we're going to help all these people. It's like, yeah, okay, well, but I don't actually understand that impact. And so, you know, understanding, yes, hey, these dollars are going to feed 3 people, but like, did it actually, right? So I think that's really the problem that, we were trying to solve. And I think, that's so important for donors, because every single store today you go to, like grocery stores, as an example, they all ask for $1. Where does that dollar go? Actually, nobody actually tells you, but CVS just got a huge fine for not actually giving those dollars away. So I think, and it was a large fine, and it's one of those things. They're taking all the credit for those dollars raised as well. They say, hey, we gave away $1 bazillion to XYZ. Well, they didn't actually give that away. It's all those people that donated those dollars. But at the end of the day, they don't actually know how that dollar helped somebody else. And I think that's the most important thing, is to be able to show that impact. And really that's why we built what we did, to help nonprofits specifically do that.
Well, and let's talk about third-party platforms, because I think you've mentioned a few that have had, some issues in the past with transparency, and the ability for people to run fundraisers that aren't legit.
Sure.
We talk a lot on this podcast about making donations and having that donation page on your website be simple and clear, whether you're using a third-party tool, but it's embedded on your website so people are building that trust with you. As we're looking into some of these third-party platforms, like what are some things we want to consider and think about as we evaluate which ones we're using?
Well, I think, the most important one is like, how are you going to be able to show your donors the impact that you're making, right? So at the end of the day, like the tools need to be able to deliver. And, there's no real platforms out there today that you can show real-time impact. In fact, most donation platforms are all, if they're showing impact, something like 6 to 12 months later, because they're doing the financials and they're looking at it that way. The problem with that is like, the donor doesn't necessarily know, and there's people that are give, and there's just that trust that's enabled. That's part of that giving situation. But when all nonprofits are specifically helping causes like, hey, we're helping the hungry, hey, we're helping the homeless, and they all have the same messaging, but no one can actually show the impact, you become a small pebble in a huge ocean of people that are asking for money. And I think when you're evaluating these platforms, I think it's most important. How are they going to be able to demonstrate that impact that you can actually show that back to your donors? And how are they helping you with your tax deductibility forms, if that's something you're doing in house, or and if you're raising money from the public, obviously there's private foundations, but if you're a private foundation, you kind of limit yourself into only being able to raise money from certain platforms. So are they helping you reach more people with the public charity status, things like so? I think you know as a donor too, the one thing that I care about the most is where did my money go? Like what happened? And if the third party tools aren't really enabling you to do that, then you either have to solve it yourself or find a platform that is able to do that for you, because that's the biggest problem that nonprofits have. And continuing today, still probably the biggest issue that exists in that space.
Well, so let's talk about Wishes, which is your platform.
Sure.
And I know that you started it based off of seeing this need because of mistrust and, transparency. So like when you started this platform, what were some of the features that you knew were like must-haves that you wanted to make sure you tackled and made clear for people that were using it and people that were giving through it?
Right. So I think the only way to really be able to show real-time transparency is to be able to change the way that money moves. And most platforms are built on banking rails, and the issue with that is when it goes into a black box, then you push money out whichever way you want, but you might not be accounting for all the dollars and cents, and you might not actually be raising money for specific categories stuff, because all nonprofits have admin expenses. There's all these different expenses that you have to cover. But the reality is that you are raising money for certain things, like your cause is representing your cancer or melanoma, whatever that may be. But being able to demonstrate where those particular dollars go is the most important thing, right? Everyone knows there's admin expenses. So through our platform, you're able to raise category specific things. So you can raise money for, like, let's just say that you're doing a food drive. You can raise money for groceries. You can raise money for people that are having that are far from their work environment, or like look at Maui, right? Maui's a perfect example. If people had to fly out of there, people needed to stay in a hotel room. You can actually donate to a hotel category or an airfare category, fly people out, and then we actually turn that money into virtual MasterCards. So the MasterCards, which can be used inside of our shopping portal, which is connected to like hotels.com, booking.com, expedia.com. So, and then Instacart and Kroger's and Safeway and places like that. So you can actually raise money for your nonprofit and actually allocate those cards to the people that need it directly. So the donors can actually understand the impact that they're making and understand that, because that is ledgers that are created on both sides of the transaction. So just like when you use a credit card, you see the receipts from exactly where you spent your money. The same thing happens when you turn donations into a virtual MasterCard that can be spent by that nonprofit or those individuals or those people in crisis, and people can know exactly what happens to that money in real time. So, if you're really trying to help a cause, specifically, not admin overhead, those types of things, which you all got to raise money for. But, I think people want to understand that, hey, the people in Maui, these guys need help. We want to make sure that those dollars go to what they're supposed to go for and not an admin expense. And that's not the right time, obviously, to be raising money for that type of stuff. So, so ultimately, that's kind of what we built is we changed the way that money moves, right? So we turn donations into MasterCards and allow those to be spent anywhere MasterCards accepted.
So there's a couple things about that I really love. One is that you can really clearly message a campaign to hit the donors where their pain points are, what they feel most passionate about. But the second is related to storytelling. But as we go into our year-end giving season, it's like a great way to really build and craft a campaign that is going to, we want to tug at people's heartstrings. We want to show impact. And so this allows us to say, this is the work that we're trying to do. This is how you can support us during the end of the year. And then really quickly and easily be able to say right away, we've raised this much money. This is going to go to 3 families, or this is going to go to like 3 pet shelters or whatever. Like you can, so the nonprofit also in real time can communicate where they are with the campaign as they're trying to get more money out of that year end, the whole cycle.
Right. And then they can instantly show that impact. And so that's the biggest differential, is that like you can show impact in real time when it matters most. And then that actually allows you to get more donations because people believe like what you're doing, how you're raising money, and the impact that it's making. And our thesis is, and why we built this really is, we believe that when people understand the impact, they'll give more and more often. And I think that's the biggest thing that's missing inside of the charitable giving space today. Is that is a missing piece, and even the nonprofits that can show impact don't do it well.
Yeah. Well, I like that you're giving them an easy way to do that. And I think there's definitely a time and place for designated funds, and there's a time and place for, general operating expenses. And so I think those two in tandem can be really interesting, and just gives you more opportunity to reach your donors where they are and how they want to support. Because I think what you're doing with Wishes also is great for bringing in newer people, right? So it's a great way to say, okay, if you've never given to us, we haven't built trust with you yet. You don't know if we put our money where our mouth is. So here's a great way where you can be hyper specific. And then once you've nurtured them and you've worked them through the welcome sequence and you've done all the things that you should be doing for donor management, then you can ask them for more unrestricted gifts that will help the organization as a whole.
Correct. And, because of the fact that Wishes has a kind of two-prong, we're a fintech that obviously moves the money, but on the front side, we're a public 501c3 charity. So if you're a private foundation, this allows you to raise money from the public through our donor portal. And so all those donations go through that public charity, and you can actually open up your giving base to people that you never talked to before, because of the fact that you can only raise money from certain companies or individuals, or when you're a private foundation. So, for those private foundations, like churches, things like that too, it opens up a huge new base of opportunity. And also, all the people on our platform. So the millions of people that will be on our platform will now have access to see your stories and give to you directly to your platform. And because our whole entire platform is based upon a trust and establishing that trust, we take that super serious. And I think that will build credence, and it'll allow nonprofits to raise money easier for whatever causes they're trying to support.
Yeah. So were there other features that were important for you when you were building this platform that you kind of saw missing on some of the other kind of third-party crowdfunding tools?
Yeah, sure. So, we also reward the donors as well. So one of the things that we did is, our public charity owns 9 LLCs. Because it's category specific, most people get bonuses when they support airfare or hotel or groceries or rideshare. Those are all bonus categories on your credit card. So those LLCs are all specifically categorized for Wishes Gas, Wishes Groceries, Wishes Hotel. So when you donate, you're actually giving back your donors their own cash back and rewards on their card when they utilize it. Plus, they're getting their tax incentives. Then we utilize it like a fleet card. One of the other cool things, and that's a pretty cool feature in my mind, because I'm a arbitrager with the credit card rewards. So giving back and then getting rewarded for it is not something that exists today. Because charity is really not a category that most credit card companies will bonus you for. So when you do category specific, through our platform, you're getting tax deductions and cashback rewards. Our ambassador program allows any donors to get an additional 1% cashback on any donation they make. Plus, they're able to. We have at the scene of a crisis, like a Maui, people can actually volunteer. We can issue virtual cards to them on the scene, so they can go buy water and supplies and things like that if they want to get involved, and which we thought was a pretty cool feature. And one other really cool feature that we have is you can send prayers and messages to people. So you don't necessarily have to donate to get involved with a cause. If someone's struggling or they're raising money for something or a crisis, and you can actually send goodwill to them and messages to them, and not necessarily have to donate every time. And I think that is pretty cool, because it gets people involved that might have not been involved before. And the likelihood of them being able to donate in the future is pretty high, because they're already in the matrix. So no, that's part of our strategy, is to get people involved, no matter how small, or and sending messages is a great way for people to do that.
So. I love that. I literally was on a training call yesterday and we were training on like providing value to like a membership based organization or like a membership giving campaign. And one of the things that really stuck out is, one of my colleagues said, we treat all of our members like they're lifetime members. So even if they have to step away for a minute, we don't look at it as they've, not renewed. We look at it as they're taking a break. And that's how we treat the donor or the member. Like it's totally get it. You need to step away for a bit. Here's some great ways you can still stay engaged with us so that we can continue to have a conversation. So when you're ready to come back in whatever capacity, you can come back. And I think that psychologically, that's such a different message because people, if they've given to you before and they can't, either A, you've lost their trust, or B, there's circumstances in their life that have changed. So if you can treat them in that way to say, here's a way you can still support our organization with love and prayers and thoughts, like that's awesome and super unique.
Yeah. Right. So, and I think that was a pretty cool way that we can get people into the matrix and, whether they're donating or not, it gets them involved and it feels like they're, making a difference in one way or another. And a lot of times, people and causes, they just need that support too. It's like, they're going through a rough time and, they need that help and, every message matters, so.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I love the cashback piece. And I'm, interested to hear how, like, if people are getting cash back, do you see people giving that reimbursement back to the organizations as well? Or have you not kind of?
Yeah, I mean, so no, we give that as an option. So essentially they can, it's up to the donor, they can keep that cash back. It's up to them what they want to do with it, or they can push it out to another campaign. We're really, most people aren't making a gazillion dollar transactions. So, 1% cash back, yeah, it's something, but like, if you're making $10 here or $20 there, you're not going to make like a bazillion dollars. So a lot of times, we're giving them options to push it back out into campaigns. Hey, you got some cash back. Hey, these guys meet your criteria. You guys have donated to campaigns supporting these types of things before. So, these might be a great way for you to participate, and they can push that cash back out without actually having to come up with more money.
So that's another perk then of the platform, and another perk people might want to consider with other platforms is it's not just about you sending out a campaign to your people, that the platform itself is also serving you up to new people that could potentially be a great fit. And you never know if you do the right work in your donor stewardship is like a huge deal, people. I hope donor retention is awful. And we talk a lot about that, but this is a great way to bring new people into your world with like a really easy, frictionless donation that you can then nurture and turn into who knows what.
Right. And one of the ways that we're doing that is we're building a centralized hub where donors can keep all of their tax incentives like into our platform. So essentially, whether it's our platform or another platform, obviously, if we're connected to a charity, we already have that in the dashboard if they're donating there. But if it's an outside place, they can pull that data in, so that way they have it all in one centralized place. They could give to their CPA at the end of the year too.
I love that. Okay, so when it comes to donor management, donor nurturing, one other thing that I think is critically important to assess in tools is our access to the people that are giving through that platform. Every platform has a different variety of how much information they give you, if you get the donor information or not, so that we can do follow-up. What does that look like for you all?
Yeah, I mean, we're an open platform, so we don't try to hold our nonprofits hostage, and I think that's also a big reason why a lot of these third-party tools. That's one of the things I should have said earlier, is that a lot of these third-party tools will hold you hostage in some way, and you don't realize it until later. For instance, I know that there's tools like payment processors, as an example, that will hold the reoccurring payments hostage, and they won't let you move those, and they won't actually give you all the data for those users. That's obviously a huge problem, especially for any subscription-based nonprofit, to not have that data. It really does hold you hostage to those platforms. And unfortunately, there are a lot of platforms out there like that. And so I think, we don't hold the data hostage. Of course, we give you free access to do with the data that you want. Obviously, it's stored on our platform in our secure servers, but you ultimately have the ability to run campaigns, do what you want with that. And you can also send out SMS campaigns directly through our platform, stuff like that. So you don't necessarily have to have all the the brick and mortar tools that you need to run a gigantic startup, you can plug right into our system and utilize all the tools that we built, and start raising money successfully and nurturing those clients the right way.
Okay, so let's go back to like trust building factors. I think we talked a little bit about some of the ways that we can lose that trust really quickly. Um, and, I think sharing impact is kind of a buzzword, but kind of what other ways might we, show up, like when we think about running campaigns, like best practices around like, if you only reach out to people once a year, like, and people don't hear from you, or like we don't show up consistently on social media until all of a sudden we need something. And then now we're posting everywhere all the time, or we're all of a sudden emailing everywhere all the time. Like, how much do you think that consistency piece plays into that trust factor?
It plays into it a lot, obviously. So, like, even though people aren't maybe liking all your posts and doing all this stuff, it's still important for you to do that. And I think, especially if you're a new nonprofit trying to build that trust, it is consistency. So, one of the ways that you can do that, obviously, because you're running around and trying to do all the things that you need to do as a one person show or a few people show, is to hire a virtual assistant who can help post that stuff or even help you create the content. But consistency is key. I mean, most people are giving on platforms like Facebook, Instagrams, and Reddit, things like that. So you need to be on all the platforms and omni-channel presence. And ultimately, when you have those donors inside of your matrix, you need to communicate with them, at least on a monthly basis, whether that's hey, here's doing our newsletter, or hey, here's some of the initiatives that we're doing, or hey, thank you for your donation. We super appreciate it, type of thing. And we're running this new campaign. If you're always staying invisible, if you're staying visible, then they see you, right? So they see you. They might not react to what you're doing, but they know that you're there. And then and the more that you build that trust over time, even though people aren't necessarily liking the photos or sharing the photos, they know that you're still around, right? And you're a real thing. And and I think that's super important because there's like close to 2 million charities in the United States, and most of them don't do much, so they can, then there's a lot that, there's a lot that do, certainly. So, nobody knows. And it goes back to the trust and the transparency. And like, when you get the money, like, what are you doing with it? Right. So, consistency. And that's why the cool thing about being able to show impact is that you can actually still run those on your social media campaigns. Like when you give away groceries or you do things like that on your app, you can actually do a thing about it, show video, like show the video of the person getting groceries. Like I feel like people are emotionally connected to those types of things. When you talk about, hey, we're helping 1 million people. Well, okay, everyone's saying that, right? But when you're actually showing it, people are like, huh, okay, like this is real, right? And I think showing that real life stuff is important because that actually is what builds those emotional connections and makes it real to other people. So,
Well, and that goes back to what you said kind of at the beginning, where it's like you understand that as a smaller shop, it might be hard to be like tracking all that data in real time to be able to show it immediately in the moment. So having a tool like what you have that does that for you, and then also then creating those real time stories is so much easier. Like that's
yeah.
easy, and then people see themselves in those videos, and they connect and say, "Oh, that could be my neighbor down the street, or that could be my nephew," or
Right. And then we'll repost it for you as well. So people will see and it'll be like your logos and branding and all that stuff. So, we'll post it all over our channels as well. So, you just kind of like a double, good thing. So you'll be able to do it to our own channels, but then we'll repost it because, we're helping, you get those dollars. So.
That's so great. Community collaboration. Okay, I have one last question because there's already so much goodness in what you've shared. But, if we're a newer nonprofit or, I know a lot of the people that listen to this podcast are small, medium sized, so they have small staff. Like, what is the power in, like you mentioned, the Facebook fundraisers and things like that, like having other people in our community share and raise funds on our behalf during things like Giving Tuesday and year-end campaigns. Like, that's a pretty great way to build trust with new people also, right? Because they already trust the person that is sharing that information.
Sure, 100%. I mean, this is inside of our platform, inside of our ambassador program, like we have a ruby, sapphire, and diamond level. And really how you get to certain levels and badges is because people that donate like to, they like to know that they're like a good, they're affiliated with that good level, the high level stuff is taking actions, right? Referring, sharing, and all those types of things. Why that's important is because you're getting in front of people that you don't necessarily are talking to, right? So now they're sharing your story, they're referring your story, they're pushing new donors potentially into your platform. And that's all free word of mouth. And you can do that by gamifying your solution and making it, interesting to want to do that stuff, right? So when you're saying, hey, share this story, everyone's like, meh, unless it's a story that they're emotionally connected with, like chances of them sharing it, not very likely, right? So, but if they're motivated by other factors as well, like, being a certain level inside of your platform, things like that, people are more likely to take those actions so that way they can kind of earn those badges inside of your platform. So I think doing some sort of gamification inside of your platform, we're talking to the new generation. Everyone's playing video games. Everyone's used to these video games. And I'm not a video gamer myself, but I know that it's important. And, most people, whether you're buying experience or not, you don't even realize sometimes that you're going through this matrix of a game, and it might not be a game exactly, but it's game like, and
Yeah.
I think that's what kind of draws us in and gets us involved.
No, my 12-year-old did his math homework only
So
because
yeah,
he wanted to be the first person to get to the next level of the math homework. So he, it was all through a system. So he was tracking it every day and he knew how many things he had to do before
yeah,
he was going to be the first
yeah,
one to be announced
yeah,
in class that he completed it first.
yeah,
So I think that
yeah.
gamification is cool.
And
And
that
that
might
can be
not
like,
work for everybody, but if you,
no,
yeah, it might not work for everybody, but listen, you have that one guy. Now he's like doing the stuff, right? And he's sharing the things. And so like not everyone's motivated by the same things. However, you do have people that are motivated by those things and they want to play those games and they want to get those badges. And so just like your son, like he wanted to be the first guy. So like people want to do that. You never know who you're talking to. And when you're trying to scale and talk to the masses, I think it's important to just because you wouldn't do something like I wouldn't play a game, well, no one's going to do this. Well, that's wrong. So
yeah.
there are people that want to do that stuff and they want to be first and they want to do these things. And so you just got to remember that stuff and take a bigger prong approach, cast a wider net.
Well, and I love a good board member competition, and this would be a way to be able to do that without having to necessarily manually track it yourself.
Exactly. Exactly. So, and part of that is the reason why the nonprofits don't do it is the tracking. Like, how are you going to do this? Like, my God, I got to get a developer. Well, through our platform, you can
Yeah.
utilize a lot of these tools and also benefit from that too. So,
That's so fun. And I think it also goes back to something you mentioned earlier, where now it also gives people an opportunity to impact your organization in a larger way without having to increase the size of their gift. So I think all in all,
right.
that's like a win-win-win for everyone.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the entire point.
Yeah.
We just want to build that trust so people give more freely and trust the process.
Yeah. So good. Okay, well, if people, Chase, want to learn more about Wishes, learn more about you, how can they do that?
You can go to wishes.inc. And if you're a donor, wisher, or a nonprofit, you can go to any one of those three. There's three personas on the homepage. Just pick which one applies to you, register, and then you can download it on your iPhone or Google phone, Android.
Android, all the things. I love that so much. And we'll have everything linked up in the show notes at thefirstclick.net/229. So you can go there to snag all those links as well. Chase, this was fantastic. And I think just a really great reminder as we go into a crazy time of year, that trust is something that needs to be built over time and could go away real fast. So always keep it top of mind.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you again to Chase for joining me today on this episode. It was a fantastic conversation. So excited for you to jump in and refine some of your processes and your strategies so that you're continuing to build trust with your donors every single day of the year. It will help your year-end giving campaigns go off without a hitch as you reach new people, use your existing audience to help get in front of new people and get those repeat donors or repeat donations from donors that have given either this year or in previous years. Building trust is critical. And so I'm glad you took the time to listen to this episode and put some of these tools and tips into action. Thank you so much for listening. Please make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen. Don't forget, we have 2 bonus episodes that come out every month. And the way that you're going to hear about them first is simply by subscribing wherever you listen to your podcast episodes or on YouTube. So thank you again. I appreciate you. And I'll see you in the next one.